I have personally been convinced from early on that Jax is not an actual human character like the others in the digital circus are, but instead I believe that he is an NPC, or non-playable character. And to a lot of people, his antics in the latest episode prove this. My name is Deepcut, people trapped in this surreal digital hellscape call me Jackcut, or Deep in the Box, pick your favorite, and welcome back to Cartoon Universe. Now, the most recent episode of The Amazing Digital Circus seemed to quickly use the early part of the story to remind us that Jax isn't like the other characters. It opens with Pomni holding her breath, which causes her skin to change colors in the game. However, the longer she holds her breath, the faster the colors change, with Pomni never reaching a point where she'd really suffocate. She does stop to let herself breathe, as there's some sort of digital psychological block that makes the avatar want this. But according to the characters, they actually don't need air and can keep holding their breaths indefinitely, and something different happens to each of them when they do this. All of this is explained by Jax, who words things in a very particular way, saying that something different happens to each person instead of something different happening to each of them, implying it's an Easter egg for human players and something that NPCs can't even do. It also could subtly hint at Jax being an NPC himself, subtly separating himself from people as a whole. This made Jax even more suspicious when he refused to hold his breath himself, after explaining that Kinger glows, Ragatha's hair noodles stick up, Gangle's mask spins, and Zubal's limbs straighten. Jax refuses to show his, however, claiming he wants to keep it a sense of mystery, but this is actually extremely suspicious and in fact possibly dangerous. Jax is not like the other characters, if not because he's an NPC, then just because he's kind of evil then. He sees the game as something to just exploit for the laughs, and he loves when simulated suffering is caused by his antics. This goes in every direction, with Jax wanting to cause stress and problems for the human players, but also for the NPCs. In episode 2, his ultimate joy was just finding a way to unleash the chocolate monster onto the people of the Candy Kingdom, where we can hear their screams of terror as carnage is unleashed on them. This may be exactly what Kane was worried about when he discussed why they don't allow the characters to bring NPCs home from their adventures back in episode 2. Here, Kane says he couldn't always tell when someone is a character versus an NPC, which is an odd thing really, but he indicates that it would be really bad for him to mix the two up. One of the most obvious reasons why this would be bad is that, like Jax, an NPC could learn to exploit the game and even exploit Kane. The people who play the game are generally doing so to be entertained. An NPC, however, can be built with very strong, complex motives and backstories that mean a lot to them, that help shape their choices. In episode 2, Pomni accidentally woke up Gummy Goo to the fact that he is not a real person, that his entire life is fabricated, and in this case it led to him peacefully wanting to just continue to exist with the humans, but over time, many of these NPCs, thanks to their more orchestrated personalities, would desire to find a way to exploit the system. Jax could be the ultimate example of that, a fun, wacky character made on some fun, wacky adventure by Kane, who is supposed to be a troublemaker or essentially a villain within the level. His original story may not have had him as an actual outlaw the way Gummy Goo and his crew were, but his personality is rooted in wanting to cause as much mayhem and destruction as possible. And if he became mistaken for human, he could end up essentially reprogramming Kane to serve him instead of humans. Right now, Kane goes out of his way to serve who he thinks the humans are, and while Zubal had a hard time convincing Kane to change the way he thinks about his adventures, the desire to cater to characters like Zubal and Jax has led to at least 2 levels being rather intense and having glitches. Right now, Jax seems so heartless that he'd leave Ragatha to die like in the pilot, and Ragatha just acts okay with it that Jax didn't go for help. It's as if he'd much rather have come back from the Gathering the Gloinks adventure to find Ragatha and Pomni both abstracted. Otherwise, why wouldn't he have gone out of his way to find Kane? Over time, even if not doing something destructive, an NPC that has convinced Kane it is human would have just created a very new direction for his programming if talked to correctly. This is something we already see with him intensifying the adventures based on the humans simply growing tired of their existence in the game and needing things that are more immersive in order to enjoy the adventures, which has led to some glitches within the levels. This itself could have been subtly pushed by Jax as an NPC as well. Jax, interestingly, even acts like Kane in that both take the time to address the audience watching the show as if they can see us, something the human characters don't do. Kane acted this way early on, such as seen in the pilot, even orchestrating the entire opening theme sequence for some imaginary audience. In the recent episode, after refusing to hold his breath to show everyone what happens to him, Jax turns towards the camera and tells the audience that he wants to know what they think the truth is, with this Kane-like action seeming to hint at him not being a human either, being just another AI-driven NPC and one who can seemingly see the audience just like Kane. Or at least is programmed to act like there is some sort of audience who could be watching the game. Now, one issue some fans take with this theory is that Jax seems to have his own room in the hallway of characters. Here, even characters who have abstracted have a bedroom with their photo on the door, indicating that they are real humans. So far, we've seen Pomni's bedroom and Kaufmo's bedroom in the show, but characters like Ragatha have only had their rooms appear in merchandise, such as the enamel pin set. Jax, of course, has a door with his own image on it, indicating that he is a real human character. However, on his enamel pin, behind his door, we don't see a bedroom like on Ragatha's pin, and instead, this merch reveals that behind Jax's door is just a great white void of spare digital space, same as the kind that exists beyond the Digital Circus game area. The area meant for creating more adventures and locations for the players. To some, this just means that Jax is a hacker who found some way into the digital void from his room, and that will play a part in some crazy shenanigans later. To others, however, it's evidence that there is no room back there. After all, there are doors with blank mannequin faces that don't seem to get a character face over them until a new player loads in, such as what happened with Pomni. It makes sense that behind those doors, all we would see is blank digital space then, something that can be reprogrammed to a personalized room like we see with Pomni and Kaufmo, but which until then is nothing but white code. All Jax would need is some image of himself to place over the original image, and everyone would assume that he has a bedroom just like they do. They probably don't even want to go in there, and all assume that someone else has seen him use the door at some point, but he probably doesn't. Kinger has a permanent pillow fort in the circus lobby area, and he seemed to like to stay there with his wife so that they would have a shared space that was something they made together. And even after she was abstracted, he continues to stay there instead of hanging out in his room like the others seem to. Jax, likewise, may just never really go to his room. He may constantly just be in a different part of the circus, just doing some nonsense and waiting for others to wake up, planning what he will do to them next. If he is an NPC, he doesn't need to sleep the way that the others feel that they need to, even though they don't need to sleep either. In the game, no one has to sleep at all, but of course the others like to because it simulates an experience that they remember from their human lives. But an NPC like Jax wouldn't have any real memories of that and wouldn't miss it the way that the others do. He'd just have more time to plot his evil hijinks. Now, one argument I hear a lot against this theory is that we do know Jax's age, which was listed by Gooseworks with all of the other characters. However, I think it should go without saying that Gooseworks wouldn't put out some list and just not include Jax and then spoil the entire idea that he is an NPC for us by doing that. A lot of people have also pointed out that Gummy Goo, the NPC from episode 2, also had an age, a family he remembered, and an entire life within the strange, surreal, small world of the Candy Kingdom. If Jax was an NPC, he would have this too, which means he would also have an age and a backstory like all of the other characters seem to. He may not have as sophisticated a story as Gummy Goo did, as Kane had explained to Pomni that the new NPCs for the Candy Kingdom level were extra immersive, but that would just make Jax all the less human and less relatable. It makes sense that whatever origin an NPC Jax may have had, that without much history or story to him, he would have just become the base traits that Kane programmed him with. Jax's intentions may be so dark that we find out that he's responsible for all of the abstractions that go on at the circus, being sure to purposely push people to their limits in order to get them to transform. As an NPC, Jax himself cannot abstract, and he may see this as a way of controlling the circus, pushing people over the edge so they can't catch on to what he is doing, slowly cycling through these various humans that pop in. But what do you guys think? Is Jax an NPC, or is he just a bit of a trolly hacker? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe for our next video, which will break down a little bit about how the show is made and the ways you can make your own cartoons like The Amazing Digital Circus or Murder Drones. See you guys then.